It wasn't the first time Carol had gotten herself into trouble, but this time, it seemed a little more complicated than usual. The sound of the keyboard echoed in the small office as Carol typed frantically, trying to finish the last report before the year-end holidays. Her mind, however, was miles away at her parents' house, where their expectations for her visit were higher than ever. They could hardly wait to meet the wonderful woman Carol had described throughout the year. The problem? That woman didn't exist. It all started as an innocent lie. She wanted to avoid the invasive questions and pitying looks her parents usually gave when asking about her love life. So, in the heat of the moment, she invented the perfect story. She was married to an amazing woman who made her happier than ever. But now, with Christmas approaching, Carol was cornered. "You're bringing her, right?" her mother had asked on the last call, her voice full of excitement. "Of course, Mom," Carol replied with fake enthusiasm. "She's really looking forward to meeting you." She hung up the phone and immediately panicked. How could she explain to her parents that the woman she supposedly married was nothing but an invention? That's when a crazy idea began to take shape. The next day, at work, while reviewing a report, she looked over at a colleague, Brooke, who was distracted at the desk next to hers. Brooke was practical, serious, and never got involved in drama. Carol hesitated, but her situation was desperate. "Brooke, can I ask you something?" Brooke looked up from her computer, furrowing her brow. "Sure, what is it?" Carol moved closer, lowering her voice. "Would you like to make some extra cash during Christmas?" Brooke blinked, confused. "Is this some kind of scheme? Because if it is, I'm not interested." No. Carol laughed nervously. "It's just, I need a favor." Brooke crossed her arms, skeptical. "What kind of favor?" Carol took a deep breath, casting a quick glance around to make sure no one else was listening. "I need you to pretend to be my wife." The silence that followed was so heavy that Carol almost regretted starting the conversation. "You want me to do what?" Brooke finally asked, looking at Carol as if she'd lost her mind. "Look, it's a long story, but I told my parents that I got married. They believed it, and now they're expecting me to bring my wife to spend Christmas with them." Brooke shook her head in disbelief. "Carol, this is insane." I know, but it's only for a few days. You just need to smile, be polite, and pretend we're in love. I'll pay you really well for it." "Pay?" Brooke narrowed her eyes. "You think you can buy me for this?" "It's not about buying," Carol responded quickly. "It's just, I need help, and you're the only person I can think of who could save me." Brooke laughed without humor. "Carol, I'm straight. I don't know how to pretend to be your wife." "You don't have to be gay to pretend," Carol insisted. "Just pretend. Like in a movie." Brooke stared at Carol for a long moment, her face unreadable. "This is completely crazy." "I know," Carol admitted, "but I'm desperate. And do you have anything better to do this Christmas?" Brooke opened her mouth to respond, but stopped. She had mentioned last week that she wouldn't be traveling to visit her family and would probably be alone for the holiday. "It's just for a few days," Carol continued, noticing Brooke's hesitation. "I swear I'll leave you alone after that." Brooke sighed, running a hand through her hair. "This is crazy, but okay, you pay me up front." Carol's eyes widened, hardly believing Brooke was giving in. "Yes, of course. And if this gets out of control at any point, I'm leaving." "Deal." 2 days later, Carol and Brooke were in the car, heading to the small town where Carol's parents lived. Brooke, who was usually reserved, seemed more relaxed than Carol had expected. "So, tell me about your family," Brooke asked, glancing out the window. "My dad is easygoing, kind of nerdy. My mom, well, she's going to bombard you with questions." "Oh, and they love stories about how we met, so we need to come up with something convincing." Brooke laughed. "I can't believe I'm doing this. Welcome to my world." When they arrived at Carol's parents' house, the cozy facade and the Christmas lights hanging on the eaves impressed Brooke. Amanda and Thomas, Carol's parents, were at the door, waving enthusiastically. "You're here," Amanda exclaimed, hugging Carol and then turning to Brooke. "And you must be Brooke." Brooke smiled nervously, but before she could respond, Amanda pulled her into a warm hug. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Carol talked so much about you." "It's nice to meet you too," Brooke replied, her voice a little softer than usual. Thomas shook Brooke's hand firmly, and they exchanged a cordial smile. "Well, come in. It's cold out there," Amanda said, guiding them inside. The house was decorated with all the classic Christmas symbols, a lush tree in the corner, stockings hung by the fireplace, and the aroma of gingerbread cookies in the air. "I hope you're hungry," Amanda said, as she led them to the kitchen. Brooke gave Carol a quick glance, and the two exchanged a knowing smile. During dinner, Amanda and Thomas didn't stop asking questions. "How did you meet? When did you realize you were in love? How was the wedding?" To Carol's surprise, she realized that Brooke was excellent at improvising. "It was kind of love at first sight," Brooke said, with a shy smile. Carol nearly choked on her wine, but managed to recover in time. "Yeah, she's so charming I couldn't resist." Thomas smiled. "It's good to see you so happy, Carol." And for a moment, Carol wondered if this could be more than just a lie. The first few nights at Carol's parents' house passed in a blur of casual conversations, Christmas traditions, and Amanda's endless questions. For Carol, it was like walking a tightrope, trying to maintain the facade without looking nervous. Brooke, surprisingly, seemed to be enjoying herself. She laughed at Thomas's old-fashioned jokes, praised Amanda's cooking skills, and even helped set up the house for the big Christmas dinner. On the morning of the third day, Carol was in the kitchen helping Amanda make pancakes when her mother asked a question that caught her off guard. "So, Carol, how did you manage to win over a woman like Brooke?" Carol nearly dropped the bowl of batter. "How do you mean?" "Oh, she's charming. Smart, beautiful, grounded. Of course, anyone would fall for her, but I'm curious to know how you managed it." Carol laughed nervously, trying to buy some time. "Well, I guess it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of persistence." Amanda gave her a knowing smile. "Whatever it was, I'm proud of you. Brooke seems like a good person." "She is. Amazing." The words came out too sincerely, and Carol felt a tightness in her chest. She glanced toward the door, where Brooke had just entered, looking still a bit sleepy. The smile she gave Carol and Amanda as she saw them talking was so natural that, for a moment, Carol almost believed in her own lie. That night, after dinner, Brooke and Carol escaped to the guest room where they were staying. Despite the exhaustion, Brooke seemed energized, flopping onto the bed with a satisfied sigh. "Your family is amazing," Brooke said, staring at the ceiling. "They're intense, but they have good hearts." Brooke turned to face her, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "You blushed when your mom asked about how we met." "I did not," Carol protested, even though she knew it was true. Brooke laughed, and the sound was so light and carefree that Carol found herself smiling too. "You're doing really well in this charade, you know?" Carol said. "Of course I am." Brooke paused, her tone shifting to something more serious. "But you know what's funny? This doesn't feel as fake as I thought it would." Carol's heart raced, but she tried to hide her nervousness. "What do you mean by that?" "Just that." Brooke hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "I thought it would be strange pretending to like you, but it's not. You're easy to like." Carol laughed, trying to ease the tension. "I'll take that as a compliment." Brooke shrugged, a small smile on her lips. "It's better than anything I expected this Christmas." Carol fell silent, watching Brooke as she adjusted herself on the bed. There was something in that moment, in the way Brooke seemed so comfortable there, that made Carol wonder if maybe, just maybe, this could be more than pretending. When the big Christmas dinner came, the house was filled with family and friends. Brooke, to Carol's surprise, seemed completely at ease, chatting with the uncles and cousins as though she had known them for years. During dinner, Amanda raised her glass, catching everyone's attention. "I want to make a toast to Carol and Brooke for bringing so much joy to this house. It's wonderful to see my daughter so happy." Carol felt her cheeks burn as everyone toasted, but she didn't have time to respond before Brooke took her hand naturally and squeezed it lightly. It was a small gesture, but something about the way Brooke looked at her made Carol forget completely that this was all a lie. After dinner, while everyone retreated to the living room, Brooke and Carol stayed behind, helping Amanda clear the dishes. "You two really do seem perfect together," Amanda commented as she washed the dishes. "You can see it in your eyes." Carol swallowed hard, but Brooke answered with a smile. "Carol is special." Amanda looked at Brooke, as if weighing every word. "It's nice to hear that. She deserves someone who values her." Brooke nodded, but Carol felt a tightness in her chest. Those words weren't real, but they were starting to sound like they were. Later that night, when they were finally alone in their room, the silence between them was heavy. Brooke was sitting on the bed, fiddling with her phone, while Carol was organizing some clothes. "Your mom said something today," Brooke started, not looking up from her phone. "What was it?" "That you deserve someone who values you." Carol laughed nervously. "Well, I guess every mom thinks that about their kids." Brooke finally looked up, her gaze fixed on Carol. "Maybe, but she's right." Carol's heart skipped a beat. "Brooke, you know this is just pretending, right?" Brooke hesitated, looking at her hands. "I know, but maybe it doesn't need to be." Carol's world seemed to stop. She didn't know what to say, so she remained silent, staring at Brooke as her mind raced in circles. "Sorry," Brooke murmured, looking embarrassed. "I shouldn't have said that." "No, it's fine." Carol sat next to her on the bed, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Finally, she took a risk. "Maybe, you're right." When Brooke looked at her, there was something new in her eyes, something Carol couldn't fully understand. "What?" Carol took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "Maybe, this doesn't need to be pretending." The words were terrifying but liberating. Carol knew she was crossing a line that, just a few days ago, she hadn't even known existed. Brooke, on the other hand, seemed conflicted, as if she was trying to process something that didn't quite make sense. "Carol, Brooke started, but the words died on her lips. Carol didn't wait for her to finish. She leaned forward, hesitantly, until their lips met. It was a soft kiss at first, as if both of them were testing unfamiliar territory. But within seconds, the hesitation disappeared, and the kiss grew more intense, filled with repressed emotion and a need neither of them had recognized until that moment. When they pulled away, both were breathless, their faces close, as if they feared losing the connection they had just created. "That was unexpected," Brooke whispered with a shy smile. "Was it wrong?" Carol asked, the insecurity evident in her voice. Brooke shook her head slowly. "No, it wasn't." The next day, the dynamic between them subtly but undeniably changed. Brooke seemed more at ease, and Carol couldn't stop the smiles that escaped whenever their eyes met. Amanda and Thomas didn't notice anything different, but Carol knew that what was happening between her and Brooke was no longer a lie. While helping decorate cookies in the kitchen, Amanda looked at the two of them and smiled. "You really complement each other." "It's so nice to see." Brooke glanced at Carol, and they both smiled, complicit. "I think so," Brooke replied, her voice carrying something that Carol couldn't fully identify. But deep down, Amanda seemed to notice something more. That night, as Brooke was in the bedroom, Amanda called Carol for a conversation in the living room. "Sweetheart, can I talk to you for a moment?" Carol felt a chill run down her spine, but nodded and sat next to her mother on the couch. "What's up?" Amanda hesitated, as if carefully choosing her words. "Are you happy with Brooke?" The question caught Carol off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you seem so natural together, but sometimes it feels like there's something more going on." Carol tried to maintain composure, but she knew her mother was more perceptive than she seemed. "Mom, Brooke is special." Amanda narrowed her eyes, studying her daughter's face. "But is this real, Carol?" Carol's heart raced. She could lie again, but something in her mother's expression made her hesitate. "It's starting to be," she admitted, her voice soft. Amanda was silent for a moment before taking Carol's hand. "All that matters to me is that you're happy. If Brooke is the one for you, then I'm on your side." On their last night there, as everyone said their goodbyes in the living room, Thomas and Amanda gave Carol and Brooke a warm hug. "You'll always be welcome here," Amanda said, with a smile that seemed loaded with meaning. In the car on the way home, the silence between Carol and Brooke was comfortable. Brooke looked at Carol, a playful smile on her lips. "Looks like we passed the test, huh?" "It wasn't exactly a test," Carol replied, laughing. "No? Then what was it?" Carol hesitated for a moment before answering. "It was a start." Brooke smiled, and this time there was something more in her gaze, something that said she believed that too. When they returned to the city, life seemed to resume its course, but now there was something different between them. It was no longer pretending, nor a transaction. It was something real, something built amidst a confusion that, against all odds, had led them to what seemed to be the first steps of a new story together. And for the first time in a long time, Carol didn't feel afraid to face the future. As the days went by after their return to the city, the tension and the uncertainty that had once surrounded Carol and Brooke seemed to dissolve. It was as if a new, unspoken understanding had formed between them, one that was deeper than the charade they had created for Carol's parents. They had crossed a line, but neither of them seemed to regret it. Brooke was more present in Carol's life now, no longer just the temporary solution to an impossible situation, but someone with whom Carol felt a surprising and growing connection. They spent time together outside of work, going to movies, grabbing coffee, and taking walks in the park. Carol found herself opening up more to Brooke, sharing details of her life she had never mentioned before. They spoke about their pasts, their dreams, their fears, and it felt as if they had known each other much longer than just a few days. One evening, as they were sitting on the couch in Carol's apartment, the air between them felt charged, almost expectantly quiet. Brooke, who was usually so confident and easygoing, seemed unusually still, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edge of a coffee mug. "Carol," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I've been thinking about everything about us, and I need to ask you something." Carol's heart skipped a beat, unsure of what was coming. She had been feeling this growing tension too, the unsaid things between them that had been lingering just below the surface. "What's on your mind?" Carol asked, trying to keep her tone light, though she could feel the weight of the moment. Brooke looked at her, her gaze intense, and for a moment, Carol wondered if she could see right through her. "I know we started this relationship pretending. But do you think," Brooke paused, as if searching for the right words, "do you think there could be something real between us?" The question hung in the air, and Carol's mind raced. She had been so caught up in the lie, in the act, that she hadn't really thought about what might be coming next. Was this just some lingering fantasy? A temporary thing? Or did Brooke, too, feel that shift? Carol inhaled deeply, her heart beating faster than before. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I didn't expect any of this. But it doesn't feel fake anymore, not to me. Not with you." Brooke's expression softened, the tension lifting from her shoulders as she leaned forward, her face inches from Carol's. "Then what does it feel like?" Carol hesitated for a second, her mind processing everything they had been through, the pretense, the moments of real connection, the growing warmth she felt when Brooke was near. "It feels right. Like maybe it was meant to be this way, in the most unexpected way possible." Brooke smiled, a genuine, warm smile that made Carol's heart flutter in her chest. "I'm glad you said that, because I feel the same way. I never imagined I'd find myself here, but now that I'm with you, I don't want to pretend anymore." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. It was as though the world had paused, and all that mattered was the truth that had been finally admitted between them. Carol reached out, placing her hand over Brooke's, and the contact felt natural, comforting. She could feel the uncertainty that had plagued her dissipating as she realized that this could be something real, not just a temporary fix for an awkward situation. "I don't want to lose this," Carol murmured. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," Brooke replied softly, squeezing her hand. "We'll figure it out. Together." And in that moment, Carol realized that sometimes life didn't follow the path she had planned, but it often led her exactly where she needed to be. With Brooke. The weeks that followed were full of new beginnings. The holiday rush was over, but Carol and Brooke's connection only deepened. They began to navigate their relationship carefully and thoughtfully without the pretense they had once relied on. It wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was real. And that was enough for them. One evening, as they sat together, watching the sunset from Carol's apartment window, Brooke turned to her, a playful glint in her eyes. "So, no more pretending?" she asked. "No more pretending," Carol confirmed, smiling back at her. Brooke chuckled, and Carol couldn't help but laugh too, realizing just how far they had come from a ridiculous lie to something that had the potential to be much more. And as the sky turned darker and the first stars began to twinkle, Carol knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. Thank you so much for your support. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.